It's episode 565 of the Locked On Texas Rangers podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Patrick. On today's show, I'll be breaking down what's going on in the AL West, doing a roundtable episode, a little bit longer of an episode, but some great stuff with all of my fellow AL West hosts, talking about who won the offseason, who's got the best farm system, what the Rangers' best trade chip is going to be, and I get plenty of pot shots in at the Astros, don't you worry. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the American League West Roundtable here on Locked On MLB, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. My name is Titan Gonzalez, host of the Locked On Mariners podcast. To help me break down the AL West is Brett Chansey of Locked On Astros, Bryce Patrick of Locked On Rangers, Jason Burke of Locked On A's, and my co-hosts on Locked On Mariners, Colby Patnode. On the show, we'll be debating which team will win the division, which of its 5 teams won the offseason, and which one has the best farm system, plus who's the most valuable in-season trade piece on each club. So let's get right down to the nitty-gritty. Who do we think is walking away with the AL West crown this season? Brett, I'll start with you.
Well, I would like to say that I believe that the Astros are going to be walking away with it, and that's not a homer take. I just offer the evidence that's given to me. Now, the AL West has become a more competitive division, and you've got the Mariners who put up a fight last year, and we really thought the Mariners were going to squeeze into the playoffs. They didn't make it in, and they have just really added some key pieces. You guys got some young studs. And then the Angels, I mean, their players are healthy, but they don't have pitching. But the Rangers beefed up too. The Rangers got a ton of offense. I think maybe some of their pitching. I think the Astros run away with it, but I think it's not going to be a clear-cut 10, 12 game lead at the end. I think there's going to be a few games separating first and second. I think third and fourth are going to be close to second. And then, it's just one of those races where Oakland, we're pulling for you to get some wins out there. But I really think the Astros, just with what they have, JV coming back, Jeremy Pena, this star rookie, their main players coming back, that it looks like they're poised to repeat an AL West championship.
Colby, you and I have talked ad nauseum about the Mariners potentially ending their 20-year playoff drought, the longest playoff drought in major American sports. You and I have heard it. We have heard it as Mariner fans, as hosts of the Locked On Mariners podcast, as hosts of our own Patreon podcast, all this stuff. We've heard it forever and ever and ever on Mariners Twitter. I think you and I are pretty much in the same boat, especially with playoff expansion, that this could be the year that they end the drought, but could they also compete for the AL West here?
I think they could compete. I would still pick Houston. I think Seattle's about a year away from seriously challenging Houston, but the gap is certainly closed, between Houston and the rest of the American League West, with the exception of Oakland, who went the other direction. So I would say it's not likely that they're going to win the division, but I do think they can. One of the X factors here is that no team is in a better position to add significant pieces in the middle of the year than the Seattle Mariners. They have the money that they can spend. They have a top-notch farm system. I think MLB Pipeline had it number 2. Baseball America had it top 3 as well.
Top 1.
Top one. Oh, number one.
Yeah.
It's the best farm system in baseball, according to some people. So the Mariners, if they can hang in there long enough to challenge Houston 2-3 games back in late June, early July, DePoto is not going to sit on his hands. He's going to go out there and try to make a move. But I do still think that Houston is the favorite right now. I think next year is kind of the year for Seattle to challenge for the division, but I do think they are a solid playoff contender as we stand here today.
Jason, the A's are trading everyone. And
yes, they are.
Even today when we're recording, Sunday, they traded Sean Manaea to the Padres. I'm going to assume your pick here is not the A's. So who are you going with for the ALS?
Well, I'll make a case for the A's all day. It's fine. They're going to be a very intriguing. No, I'm not going to. They're going to be a very intriguing team. It's not going to be their year. Like, the Astros and the Mariners, maybe the Angels, their games are day to day. The A's progression is going to be week to week, month to month. That's what we're watching in the AL West, or just our season in general. So some of the guys that they're getting back, how are they performing? So they're not going to be in the AL West race necessarily, but I'm rooting for the Mariners. I've always had a soft spot for the Mariners. I grew up watching Ken Griffey, so I'm hoping that it's them after battling Houston for so many years. But it's probably going to be Houston just because they're a good team. They lost Carlos Correa. Are they still good? Yeah, probably. So I think that it's probably Houston. I'm rooting for the Mariners. I don't take the Angels seriously until they prove that they should be taken seriously, and they haven't done that yet. So they've made good moves. They got Thor, but how many innings is he actually going to throw? 120? Is that enough to put them over the top? No, it's not. So, yeah, it's probably the Astros, but hoping for other teams.
All right, Bryce. The Rangers they added a guy or two this offseason. No big deal. They spent a little bit of money this offseason. How are you feeling? You think that's enough to push them into division contention, or how are you feeling?
First off, I'm feeling great. I mean, ever since I started this podcast in 2019, which was like the exact wrong. It was the first year without Adrian Beltre. It was the first year. I mean, they were kind of scrappy for the first half of that year. But for most of my time doing this podcast, the Rangers have just been bad. Like, just not just bad, but kind of miserable bad. There's not hasn't been very many fun spots. Last year, Adolis Garcia was fun. Joey Gallo was a lot of fun until he was traded. But like, they're at least, I would classify them as fun bad this year. Feisty, but they're fighting for 500. They are not going to contend for the division. But I'm going to pick the Mariners to win this division. I think the pieces that they added are legit. Their farm system, while I don't think it's as deep as the Rangers, their top guys are some of the best prospects in all of baseball. And they are going to be stars. They're going to be pains in our butts for the next 5-10 years in Seattle. And I think those guys, Julio is just absolutely legit. And I think they're going to add a couple of pieces. They obviously just added a Cy Young winner. And they're a young, scrappy team, and there's not really a big weak spot on that team right now. Everybody's at least solid, pretty much all around the board. I mean, the starting pitching I think could be a little better, and I think they will upgrade that eventually. But they've got so many guys that are not just going to be major league caliber guys, prospects, but star potential, multi-time all-star, maybe even MVP level guys in that system. And I think this is the year they break out and Seattle fans can be happy and go back to being the annoying Mariners fans that they were in the 90s and early aughts, whatever it's called, when they were actually good, as opposed to the little Mariners, that's so cute. Yeah. They've been for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I am going to be very annoying. I have so many receipts.
Buddy, I'm right there with you.
So, all right. I know everyone wants me to pick the Mariners. Am I really going to leave Bryce as the only one who picks the Mariners here?
Dude, I'm willing to be on the island. I was about to go A's as a bit until Jason, did it. But,
I was going to say there's no way Bryce is going to pick the Houston Astros. No way.
Legally, I cannot. I will be outed for my own podcast. I don't even care if I'm wrong.
Well, here's
but I really do believe.
But you do make some good points. I think Seattle is going to be the team to watch out for, I think.
Yeah. I'm still going to go with the Astros. Yeah, they lost Correa. Yeah, they lost Graveman. They did add, Verlander back to the mix. We'll see how he, is able to recover from Tommy John at his age. I think they're going to be starting the season without McCullers for a little bit there, so that's going to hamper some things, but that's still a really good rotation with Urquidy and Garcia and all those guys. Obviously
the in the AL West, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think there's really any denying that, especially at full strength. I mean, that's a really, really stacked rotation that can go toe to toe with anyone on any given night. So I still think that's a 90+ win team. The Mariners right now, as they stand, I think they're probably a mid-80s win team, but there's a very clear path there, as you guys talked about, as Colby talked about, with the farm system, with the money that they have to play with, where they can get to 90+ wins. Again. And they did a lot of good things this offseason to help get them on that path. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Mariners did win it. As a fan, I don't want to get hurt though. So I'm not gonna pick them just yet. I'm not gonna get in the cart before the horse, but I do like their odds. I do like their odds, but I'm still going to go with the Astros. That's still an incredibly built team, even without Carlos Correa. We'll see if Pena is something. It seems like, Brett, you're pretty high on him, and look, it's the Astros. I'm sure he's going to be like a 5-win player out of nowhere this year. So, because of course. All right, so we're going to be talking about which team won the offseason. I think I have a pretty good idea of who that might be. We'll see. Of course. Real quick, a reminder: this episode of Locked On MLB and our AOS roundtable here is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I started taking Athletic Greens because I just don't have the time to research every single amazing thing that's going to make my body feel great, and I'm sure neither do you. So, what is Athletic Greens? Well, with one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. Again, because I don't have the time to do the research and the shopping and the cooking and all the preparations necessary to get the vitamins I need, I love Athletic Greens because I can get it all in one go. It's simple, to the point, and it only costs you less than $3 per day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's also lifestyle friendly, with a keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. And for every purchase, Athletic Greens donates to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the U.S. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. It's just one scoop and a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, this is the AOS Roundtable here on Locked On MLB. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder to check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts, just like this one. So let's dive into the offseason. There was obviously a pretty big thing that happened mid-offseason that delayed things quite a bit. We'll leave that unnamed. Yeah. We'll just, we'll move past that. We'll ignore that. That's in the past. That doesn't matter anymore. So, Brett, I'll start with you because the Astros, quite frankly, didn't do a ton this offseason. They brought back Justin Verlander. They added Hector Neris to the bullpen, but they lost Brooks Raley, Kendall Graveman. We talked about Correa. We talked about, some of these other guys. So, how are you feeling about the Astros, and who do you think, in the end, out of these 5 teams in the AL West, won the offseason?
Well, I think that as an Astros commentator or even as an Astros fan, you ultimately have to trust what the front office is doing because they have a lot more insight than we do. And they apparently were comfortable enough with what they had and what they had in Jeremy Pena to let Carlos Correa walk. Who knows what they did or didn't offer him? Who knows who ghosted who? But I know a lot of Astros fans felt like with leaving 30-something million under the first CBT number that maybe they should have done more or could have done more. Our center field is a little suspect right now with Jake Myers on the mend. So there's no way we won the offseason. I think bringing Justin Verlander was a huge return. But I also think that this offseason, I want to say the Rangers won, but I feel like the Rangers and the Mariners both added significant pieces to their teams. For me, it's hard to give a clear-cut winner, because I think the Mariners, with adding Robbie Ray and some other pieces that way, probably beat them. But what the Rangers did, they immediately made themselves not necessarily a contender, but a team that's going to battle more and be in more games this year than they were last year. Like Bryce said, bad fun. But, I think you'll have a lot to look forward to there in Arlington with the guys you added. I mean, they're consummate professionals. They're great at their positions. I'm going to give the upper hand on the Mariners just because the Robbie Ray signing, but the Rangers, you got to tip their hat, to them. I'm interested to hear what Jason Burke has to say later, because he had some cool pre-show comments I want to delve in on.
All right, Colby, our M's did a lot, just as Brett said. They added Robbie Ray. They added Jesse Winker, one of the most underrated hitters in all of baseball. Ray, obviously, coming off of the Cy Young Award. Adam Frazier, all-star last year. Eugenio Suarez, great bounce-back candidate. We've talked about him a lot and the potential of him bouncing back this during this offseason and on our show. How do you feel about the Mariners and the Rangers? Obviously, the Rangers spent $1 billion kajillion this offseason, and that's kind of a rarity in Major League Baseball. So you give the advantage to them or to the Mariners, or who? Maybe the A's. Maybe the A's for selling off.
Yeah.
There you go. Kind of want to bounce around a little bit here. First of all, the Mariners offseason, I thought it was pretty good. We've talked about this time. I would give it like a solid like B, maybe B plus. I'm not wild about how much they're relying on their young talent like Julio and Kelnick and George Kirby, Matt Brash, even Logan Gilbert, Cal Raleigh. Like, you just go down the list. Like, all of those guys need to be quality big leaguers for the Mariners to really make a serious push for the division. And they really didn't do much around the fringes. They definitely added impact. Obviously, you add a Cy Young Award winner, you add 2 All-Stars, and you had a guy who 2 years ago hit 49 home runs, and even last year in a down year hit 31. They certainly did quite a bit. And they had a very impactful offseason. If you're asking me which ALS team had the best offseason, like who added the most wins, probably the Rangers. Who added the most impactful wins? Probably the Mariners. And maybe that's a little, splitting hairs and all that stuff, but adding 5 wins for the Mariners is much more valuable than adding 15 wins for the Rangers, just because the Mariners are just ahead of the Rangers in their current build. So I did want to point out, I do find it interesting that, the Angels have arguably the 2 best players on the planet and 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, and not one of us even dared to mention them as a title contender. And the fact that they brought in Syndergaard is literally a footnote for most of us, because I think the Angels did have a nice offseason. I don't think it matters because they're the Angels, and I am contractually obligated to talk smack about the Angels. I'm fascinated to see how that team, which added a lot of pitching, a lot of bullpen help mostly, and has arguably the 2 best players on the planet. I am fascinated to see how they go 78 and 84 again.
Yeah, the Angels the last time the Angels finished above 500, Jerry DiPoto was their general manager.
But it's all his fault. It's all his fault.
Yeah, but apparently it's all his fault.
I still think if you purchase an Angels jersey with the number 27 and just put no pitching instead of Trout, that kind of sums up their team.
Yep. Jason, all right. Pre-show, before we hit record on this, you said that you have a take that I think some A's fans and definitely baseball fans around the world would find pretty interesting. Go.
Okay. The question is, who won the offseason? And Colby's over here like, oh, who added the most wins? No. Who added the most talent? The A's brought in the most talent. So obviously they won the offseason. It's easy. They brought in so many players that are maybe good.
Quantity over quality, right?
Exactly. They traded for like 1998 Andrew Jones. He's good. Kevin Smith is over here putting up spring numbers like Matt Chapman, so there's no drop off whatsoever. Adam Oller could be the next Chris Bassett. So hey, are they going to be a good team? Not necessarily. That's my joke take. Are they going to be a terrible team? Maybe. But there are going to be pieces here where they're going to be building towards that next contender. And hey, maybe it's going to be 2 or 3 years, as opposed to, like the Orioles, who I don't know when they're expected to start winning games. So it's going to be a rough season, but they brought in a bunch of talent, and I'm excited to see some of these guys. Some of them are close to the major, some of them aren't. And it's going to be a slow burn, but hey, they got some guys, and I'm excited about that. And I'd say that probably the Mariners won the offseason overall. I think that because I wrote down reasons. The Astros are good regardless. They didn't need to do a whole bunch. The Rangers, made a bunch of moves, but they added like older guys but they're not ready to contend now. So as they're aging and getting worse, then they're going to be getting their prospects. And so I'm confused by that, but good job. And then the Mariners, they protected themselves really nicely from the regression that I think is going to be coming from last year, where they won a lot of close games. They had their good bullpen, bad bullpen situation. Their bullpen was locked down. They had a bunch of clutch hits, and you can't really rely on that year to year. So I think that they protected themselves nicely with some of the additions that they've made. Have they gotten a whole lot better from where they were probably projected for last season? No, but should they be able to maintain that? I think so. And I think that that's solid. I think that's, if they can win 85, 86 games, hey, that might be enough. We'll see. And then the Angels are whatever. So that's my take. Bryce, go ahead.
Well, I respect all of you, but you're all morons. Not a single one of you picked the Rangers. They spent $500 million in 2 days, and it's not just about that.
Okay.
That is the big part of it, because going from 100 losses for the first time since the 1970s, they've only lost 100 games 3 times in the 50 years since they have been in Texas, and 2 of those times were 2 of the first 3 seasons in Texas, and one of those was last year. But it wasn't just the guys that they added in the middle of the infield. I think Cole Calhoun is a really solid hitter, but some of the things that they did is actually on the coaching staff that I think might have a huge impact. They added Donnie Ecker, who last year was the hitting, actually like the last couple of years, I think maybe 2 or 3 years, has been the hitting coach in San Francisco, who had the best offense in baseball, and had all these guys who were I considered to be mostly washed, mostly out of it, and he just completely revitalized their careers. He is now
Bryce,
the Rangers.
Bryce, is that the guy whose son started leaking stuff on Twitter?
That's the other one. I'm getting. That's Tim. Tim Hires. Tim Hires is the actual hitting coach who they added from Boston, whose son may or may not have been leaking Rangers news before it happened. But Donnie Ecker is now the bench coach / offensive coordinator. So he is implementing an entirely new offensive philosophy, using a lot less coaches throwing batting practice, using a lot more pitching machines. That was really effective with San Francisco and helping some of the older guys, helping some other guys, hit against velocity really well. But they also added John Gray, and to your point of they added a bunch of older guys. I mean, Marcus Semien isn't that old. I believe he's 30. He just turned 30. But the Rangers have a lot of guys on the way. They got Cole Winn, who is one of the top pitching prospects, top 100 prospect pretty much all around baseball. He's going to be up at some point this season. He's going to be probably a middle of the rotation guy. Jack Leiter is one of the more advanced draft arms that has been in the draft basically since David Price. He's already starting in Double-A. He didn't pitch at all in the minors last year. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was about major league ready by the end of the season. I don't think they're going to promote him because there's no need to rush him. But also, I think he's going to be in the big leagues at some point next year, which is kind of insane for a guy to go through that quickly. And he's got real top-of-the-line stuff. I mean, his dad was a 20-year veteran. He's been training for this literally since he could hold a baseball. But the Rangers have a lot more talent. They have a lot more guys in the middle of the rotation. I think it's going to be a lot more solid than people give it credit for. Dane Dunning, Martin Perez is there to, be there and eat innings and kind of help some of the younger guys like Spencer Howard, who has looked really good this spring, was the primary return from the Phillies in the Kyle Gibson trade. But the Rangers are not going to lose 100 games this year. They're not going to contend the division, but they are going to be about middle of the pack, and going from absolute bottom tier and convincing 2 of the best, at least 4 free agents that were on the market this year to sign with a team that just lost 100 games. If that's not winning the offseason, I don't know what the heck is. And clearly y'all don't either.
Hey, Bryce, yeah. I want to say real quick that just because you spent $500 million doesn't mean that you won, because gas is $6 now and it used to be a lot cheaper. It doesn't mean that it's better gas, Bryce. That's all.
Well, $6 better in California.
I
feel sorry for y'all.
I think you said it great. Boy. But my question for Jason is, how is Scott Hatteberg and David Justice going to do this year?
They're going to be so good. I have no idea who's going to be playing first base. They've got 5 guys that are in the mix right now. It's wild. DJ, I guess that's Billy McKinney now. They're all over the place. They were playing as we started recording. I think that there are roster announcements coming after that game ends on Sunday. So
you're not bringing in Mitch Moreland?
He's still a free agent, isn't he?
I think he is. I haven't seen him sign with anywhere.
Look, Michael Conforto is a free agent, isn't he?
Yeah.
Look, Jed Lowry is going to hit 340 for the A's this year, right?
He is.
Jed Lowry, Tony Kemp.
Elvis
Tony-
Andrews,
Tony
30
Kemp
home run
gonna hit, like,
season.
37
I love
Lead-
Tony Kemp.
lead the league in batting because of course.
Good time.
I gotta make my pick. I'm going with the Angels. No, I'm basically like the de facto Angels representation here on this show, unfortunately. So I guess I have to talk about them for a second here. I do like what they did with the bullpen, getting, Iglesias back, even though that they paid way too much for Raisel Iglesias. $18 million for a reliever should never happen. That should be illegal. But getting Ryan Tepera and Aaron Loop and some of those guys, that's cool. But yeah, Syndergaard has thrown an inning in the last 2 years. I don't know how that's going to translate at all. The Astros, they're still really good, even without Correa, even without Graveman and all these guys. So they didn't really need to do a ton. I like the Hector Neris ad. We'll see what goes on with Verlander. The Rangers spent a lot of money, and that should be applauded because, like
I also forgot to mention Mitch Garver. Like, I just completely
Oh, yeah,
forgot to mention
Mitch,
adding one of the best hitting catchers in
Mitch-
baseball. I was
Mitch-
like, oh yeah, your number 3 hitter. Yeah, that also
Mitch Garver.
happened.
I really like John Gray, not as like a lead piece in the rotation, but hopefully that Texas rotation gets a lot better over the next year or so. Gray should be a nice part of that as a 3 or 4 in that rotation. But yeah, I do like that. I do, the A's, I mean, I'm sorry, Jason, but the payroll situation and everything, I'm sorry, man, that I can't.
At least they're staying in Oakland. Like at least
For
now.
Real quick, I will say on that front, it looks like it might happen, that they might stay, but we'll see. There's a lot of stuff to go through, but it's trending positively. I know that there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's trending positively. We're still very optimistic here in the Bay Area. So that's all. Go ahead.
Good.
Let's go. That's good. As someone wearing a Seattle Supersonics hat, I am definitely not rooting for a team to be taken away from its city. So I'm gonna go with the Mariners here, though, because I'm biased. I'll just admit it, and that's really the reason why I'm picking them. But no, they surprisingly won 90 games last year. Colby and I have talked about whether that's a fluke or not and what have you. But they built on that because they weren't a 90-win team heading into this year. But they built a roster that at least has a path to getting there, like I said earlier. And that's really all that you could hope for. Yeah, they missed out on some of the big free agents like Trevor Story, like Chris Bryant, et cetera. But you look at some of the deals that those guys signed and it's like, okay, I get it. Those are great. Maybe even all-star caliber players, but they're not stars. They're not superstars. So there's a certain cutoff point with those guys for me. But adding Jesse Winker, who, I mean, by WRC plus at least was the best hitter that switched hands this offseason, even better than Matt Olson by a couple points. I'm nitpicking here, but yeah. But yeah, like they added some really nice pieces with Ray, with Frazier, with Winker. I think they're in a good spot. So let's get into the farm systems now. We've already talked a little bit about the Mariners, in their rankings. We've talked about the Rangers. The Rangers are in a good spot as well. The A's have obviously beefed up their farm quite a bit here. How are we feeling about the best farm system in the division? Brett, I'll start with you.
I believe it's got to be the Mariners just because of, obviously evidence. And I know a lot of times most rankings are done by who has the most top 100 prospects, right? And a lot of times those are your big guys that are making the millions, your Rodriguez's, your Francos, your Bobby Witt Jr.'s, your Jungs, your guys like that. But the Astros have moved up. They're not last anymore. I put them about 24th or 25th. Look at how many guys are contributing right now in the major leagues that weren't on anybody's radar that are on this roster. And
Chas
we've got
McCormick.
we've got
Jake
a whole
Myers,
slew.
yeah.
I mean, who saw Jose Urquidy? Who saw Luis Garcia? We've got guys like John Bermudez. We've got guys like Hunter Brown. We've got Corey Lee. We've got Pedro Leon. He won't be up this year, but let me tell you, we've got some studs coming they're under the radar. We're fine with that. The Mariners, I think, clearly have the top. The A's, I know Jason mentioned that y'all added a ton, and we're yet to see. I think the Rangers, what the Rangers are doing in Round Rock and what they have in their lower levels, they are building a contender. So I would go Mariners. We're not at the bottom anymore, but we're a little bit higher, and a lot of that has to do with trades and letting young talent go. And gosh, I still wish we could have kept Teoscar Hernandez. I really like that player.
Colby, tell the folks how good the Mariners farm system is. Just gush.
It's the best in baseball. And frankly, it's not close. The Mariners are here. The Rangers are somewhere off my computer screen. No, but in all seriousness, the Mariners farm system is very good. It's going to go down in the ranks next winter. But rankings don't really matter. Because if you're telling me right now the Astros are 24th, 25th, I'm telling you they're going to develop 4 3-win pitchers in the next 5 years anyways. It doesn't matter. That's what the Astros do. So rankings don't really matter. But the Mariners are going to graduate some guys here. They're going to graduate Julio probably here in the first couple months. They're going to graduate Brash. They're going to graduate Kirby somewhere down the line. And those guys are all going to graduate. And that's not counting recent graduations like Cal Raleigh and Jared Kelnick, Logan Gilbert. And the farm system still might not be at its best because there is a lot happening in the lower levels. Felton Celestine is going to sign here. I think next January is the official signing date for that. It's still
could
kind
be
of
July still. It could
be
July,
September. It's kind of all over the place, but he's going to sign here. There's one thing we can count on Jerry Dipoto, the regime, to do now. It's draft and develop. I mean, we're talking about guys like Harry Ford, who most people aren't really talking about. Adam Macko is a huge sleeper. The Mariners love Adam Macko. So that's a name to watch there. The Mariners system is very, very good. But I will say Texas is right there. I think the Mariners system is actually deeper than Texas, so I would disagree with Bryce. I think it's deeper, particularly on the pitching side of things. I think Texas, I look at those top 5 guys that they have in Pipeline's top 100, and I see some good players. I don't see potential stars there, and the Mariners have stars.
Have you seen Jack Leiter?
Oh, don't get me started on Jack Leiter. I love Jack Leiter. I started the Lose for Leiter campaign when people were still Fubar for Kumar. So
Fubar for Kumar.
Yeah, that might be a Mariner only thing, but yeah, I was on the Lose for Leiter train from the jump. So yeah, I love Jack Leiter. You don't have to sell me on him. But I will say this, it's interesting. The one thing I know about Oakland in general is that they're going to develop guys. I can count. There's 2 things I can count on the Oakland A's to do: be cheap and develop their own talent, who are going to just crush the Mariners for no apparent reason. So that's going to happen. They've obviously improved greatly with all these trades. It's a bummer that that's how you have to improve, but it is. And then you have the Angels, who are picking their nose in the corner, not quite sure what a farm system even is. So to me, it's the Mariners and the Rangers are kind of like right there, 1 and 2. Then it's Oakland, and then it's Houston, who's going to be better than you think because they always are. And then it's like 50 piles of elephant poop, and then it's the Angels. So the Angels can't develop at all. You're telling me I'm supposed to be excited about Reed Detmers? Get out of here.
Wow.
Get out of here.
Wow. From the top rope, Colby.
Wow. Oh, you've only got
I will cancel appointments.
You've got a little taste.
Wait, hold on.
This
He said gush about the Mariners, and then he drugged the entire division with him.
See, this is why he's my co-host, right? Like I'm Chris Traeger. He's Ben Wyatt.
Incredible.
All right. Jason, how are we feeling about the A's right now after all these trades? Like, where do you think they rank now?
I mean, at this point, they traded Manaea like 6 hours ago, and I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It happens. That's where I am. So I'm just like, hey, who did they get? Let's move on. Because I've done this 5 or 6 times at this point. So I'm like, yeah, it's whatever. Let's get. And I made this point on my show a couple weeks ago when they traded like Matt Olson and stuff. And the thing that the A's have, this is not about the farm system necessarily, but it kind of is. The thing that the A's do is they give you time to just learn to love the guys that they have on the club, just like the Mariners are doing this as well. But they don't go out and spend a bunch of money where it's like, hey, we're going to go get Garrett Cole, and now we're going to go win a championship. You're like, hey, no, we're going to fall in love with this team. And maybe you have a season like 2012 where, sorry, Bryce, they didn't win. They didn't lead the division until the very last day of the season, where they swept the Rangers in the final series of the season. And then they lost in the ALDS, but everybody chanted because it was just a magical season. It was wonderful. And those are the kinds of moments that you get as an Oakland A's fan. You might not win a championship, but hey, you're having fun. And maybe one day they will. And so that leads me to the A's prospects. And I'm intrigued mostly at the upper levels right now. And the guys that we're presuming are going to make the major league roster. You got Kevin Smith, who came over in the Matt Chapman trade. He looks interesting. He's a shortstop by trade. He's probably going to be playing either third or second or wherever they want to put him. There's a bunch of moving parts right now. Ellis Andres is still under contract. Thanks for that one, Bryce. Sheldon Noisy is back, so that's fun. He might play third or second, or there's a lot of moving parts. We're going to find out who plays where, because Tony Kemp also on this team. He plays second base, and also other places. I really like Pache a lot. His defense has been fantastic. He's showing signs that his bat can play. We're going to find out if it can, because if it does, oh man, that is a superstar in the making right there. I like him a lot. He's a good time. Adam Oller, I mentioned him already. It seems like he's a gritty guy. He strikes me a lot like a Chris Bassett type, where he might overpower you a little bit, but he's going to try and outthink you. He's going to try and outwork you, and he's a very A's pitcher. And then they got another guy, Snead. He's a reliever. He's going to make the roster. He looks good. I'm intrigued by him. So those are the main guys up at the major league level. I think that the depth of the A's system and where they are, I think that they were ranked 23rd by MLB Pipeline overall, is going to be up to Shea Langeliers, who they got in the Matt Olson trade. He is their number 2 prospect behind fellow catcher Tyler Soderstrom. So the A's have 2 top-tier catchers in their prospect rankings. So that's fun. Which means,
you know what that says to me, Jason?
They're going to trade Sean Murphy.
They should trade Sean Murphy to the Mariners.
Yes. Sure. You guys want to give us some guys? Because his value is very high. You got 4 years of control of this guy, and he is having an amazing spring right now. And I think that, to your point, how Shea Langeliers performs in the first month or two will determine whether or not he's coming up, early this season or later on this season. And when that happens is when they trade Sean Murphy and also get a haul for him and supplement their prospect, their farm system even more. And so that's kind of where I was going with all that. And then the other guy, Tyler Soderstrom, their actual number 1 prospect, he's probably not going to be a catcher anymore. So how does he develop with the bats? And is he going to be playing first base? These are things that I'm keeping an eye out for, because his bat can play. And I'm intrigued to see where he's going to be playing. But go A's. The Mariners have the best system. Take it away, Bryce.
Well, if you take out several guys from the Mariners system, then the Rangers have the best system in all of the AL West. You take out Julio Rodriguez and Matt Brash, and he's going to be in the major leagues now. And Matt Brash his level is listed on Pipeline as MLB, and Kirby. Yeah, Kirby's going to be probably sometime this year. Oh, Kirby made the rotation?
No, Brash did.
Oh, Brash did. Yeah. Okay. Well, all these guys, the Mariners have a really great system. There are a lot of tough guys, but I really disagree with your take that the Rangers system is not as deep, and definitely disagree with it on the pitching side. I have one of my friends who is a scout in the AL East has told me that he was absolutely floored by the amount of depth the Rangers have in their system. But you are right. There's not a whole lot of star guys, but there are several at the top of the system. Mm-hmm. It starts with Jack Leiter, who I actually ranked as my number 2 prospect because of my own homerism, with Josh Young, who I think is the best third base prospect in baseball. I've watched that kid since he was a freshman at Texas Tech, got some eyes on him then. I also saw Shea Langeliers while he was a freshman as well, and both those guys went right around the same time. But anyway, Jack Leiter is going to be a future ace of this staff. And another guy to keep an eye on, I love Cole Winn. He's very, very advanced. He's still only 21 years old. He's only had 2 actual minor league development seasons because 2020 he was drafted, I believe, in 2018, but they were doing this dumb thing called deload program where a lot of their pitchers just didn't pitch the first year of their draft, and then shocker, a whole bunch of them had Tommy John surgery when they started to pitch again. But somebody a couple of guys who jumped onto the national, should be on the national prospect guys consciousness, is one guy who won the best pitcher award in the Arizona Fall League, and that is Owen White, who's got absolutely disgusting stuff. I can't remember if the Rangers drafted him or if he was a Rangers draft pick. I was confusing him with AJ Lexi, who was part of the Yu Darvish trade. He was a second-round pick back in 2018, has had some injury issues, and was injured a little bit last year. But his stuff is absolutely nasty, and outside of Jack Leiter, it might be the best in the system. He's going to start the season at high A, probably end the season in double A. But another guy who really came on last year was, and thank you for this, Jason, is Dustin Harris, part of the Mike Minor trade, which how the Rangers got two guys as good as Dustin Harris and Marcus Smith in that trade is absolutely beyond me. But Dustin Harris absolutely crushed it at every single level he played last year. He had an on base over 400. He slugged over 500. The guy was absolutely mashing 20 home runs last year. He plays pretty much all the corner positions, first base, third base, left field, right field, which is really good for him because he's going to be in Double-A. And, you know, the infield's pretty much locked away for the Rangers for the next half decade. You have Nathaniel Lowe at first base, and you have probably Josh Young for the next 5 years at third base, even though he is going to be out for this entire season with a shoulder injury. Probably will be back around, mid-August. But the Rangers' depth is excellent. They have a lot of guys that are really stinking good at the top of this list. Ezekiel Duran, who was part of the Joey Gallo trade. Josh Smith nearly broke camp with the Rangers big league club this season, or this spring. He hit like 420 and an OPS of I think over 2,000. It was absolutely ridiculous. Came up as a shortstop. He's going to play a lot in the outfield because, again, you spent $500 million on your middle infield. So his long-term future is probably going to be somewhere in the outfield. But that guy also was an AFL fall star in the fall. Didn't do as well when the Rangers first traded for him. But this guy can absolutely mash. He can't really play shortstop. But other than that, he plays third pretty well. He's going to spend a lot of time learning left field, seeing if he's a center fielder. But that guy can absolutely tear the cover off the baseball. And it is legitimately 30 players deep. There's at least, I think, 30 guys in this system right now that I could say are going to be big league contributors at some point in their career. And that is a very rare thing to see in a system like this that was so far gone just 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. I'll say this about
that's
Owen
why
White.
trading guys
really
works.
I really like Owen White. I liken him to a poor man's Sam Carlson. But White would definitely be in the top 20-ish of the Mariners prospect system. Yeah. No, but in all seriousness, I do really like Owen White. I really do.
Yeah, he's going to surprise some folks, and I can't wait to see him in
savagery tonight.
He's very good.
Man, he's talking like someone who's been to 5 straight ALCS. Sorry.
He's talking like a team
World
who
Series
hasn't
show.
missed the playoffs
Soon.
in 2 decades.
One tainted
Colby is a time traveler. Colby's a time traveler. He's been to the year 2027, and there he is.
Don't start time travel now. You know how much I hate time travel.
Oh yeah, in game. See, I have words that I just say to Colby, and then he starts ranting for 20 minutes. Colby, Russell Wilson.
I can't use those words on this podcast, so I'm going to respectfully decline.
So, real quick, again, I guess I have to talk on behalf of the Angels. It's a dumpster fire. Dear Lord, if they want to get better, they're gonna have to trade Brandon Marsh or Jared Walsh or Joe Adell or someone like that. And it's okay, you're taking away from your major league roster. So, whatever. The Mariners farm system, great, love it. Rangers farm system, great, love it. A's farm system, great, love it. Astros farm system, probably going to be a lot better than everyone thinks because, of course. And the Angels.
But I hear they have pitching prospects.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. Someone's like, well, they've been drafting pitchers. And I'm like, yeah.
They drafted 20 pitchers. How can they be bad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One has got to stick. One.
It's all that reverse luck from drafting Mike Trout and getting Shohei Ohtani. It's all right, you get these two, and that's it. That's all you get.
So look, they got Mike Trout. They couldn't win.
So,
they expanded the playoffs. They couldn't win. They got Shohei Ohtani. They can't win. I mean, what are they going to do to beat him? I mean, do they get an automatic 10-game push next year?
Everybody makes the playoffs.
There you go.
All right, guys, we're going to be talking about the best in-season trade chip in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder, this show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championships odds, podcasts, and reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So there's a couple ways that we can attack this, because Jason, for you guys, and maybe even for Bryce and the Rangers, Mostly it's going to be
Don't you dare put that on me.
All right. Maybe the Rangers are kind of in a position where the Mariners were about a year ago, where it was like, all right, they might not be competing, but they might add at the deadline anyway. So maybe you can attack it from a buying standpoint. Jason, I assume if the A's have anything left to sell, I mean, they still have Frankie Montas for now. We'll see if that lasts until the summer, but
we'll see if it lasts to the end of the recording of this podcast.
yeah, probably.
It's a in-season trade chip, right? So we still got a few days. Nobody's safe right now.
So
Jason
Brett,
is on the trading block. Yes.
Brett, I'll start with you, since we just said that the Astros farm system is probably going to be better than everyone thinks, but does the rest of the league feel that way? How are the Astros going to get better this mid-season if they need to?
It depends on who they can go out and get by the trade deadline, relief pitching wise. I think relief pitching is their biggest hole. I don't know why you would go out and get a position player at this point. Right now, Baez looks shaky in spring training. Montero, we hope we catch lightning.
We know about Rafael Montero,
but here's some guys though that are supposed to pay dividends, but I don't know that they will. Hector Neris, it's a wait and see. I think he's got potential to be better than both of those guys, but the Astros will have to, if they want a significant upgrade in their bullpen, they're going to have to look at a Colin Barber. I really doubt Corey Lee or Hunter Brown. I think Corey Lee, Hunter Brown, and Pedro Leon are all untouchable. They'll probably have to get rid of a Martinez, who we actually got from Oakland, I think. Bermudez, some of these other guys, Pete Solomon, that are major league ready. A Tyler Ivey who has pitched, who had an unfortunate injury his rookie year. He actually debuted in Arlington, and then shortly after that, he didn't do too well because of an injury. But they've got pieces they can trade away. I don't know what value they have. So the Astros community is looking for them to do something relief pitching wise at the halfway point. I just don't know who they're going to grab. Are they going to grab someone from AA? Is it going to be an Alex McKenna? Is it going to be a Greg Kessinger? They've got so many guys that really have talent and upside. They're just not ready yet. Corey Jolks, a local kid out of Friendswood High School, town right next to mine. Kid's a stud athlete. I mean, they've got a plethora of players. Taylor Jones, who's out of Seattle, was an amazing athlete in high school. Is just one of those things. So I'm not sure.
How are you feeling about the Mariners? What do you think is going to be their biggest trade chip when, presumably, even if this season kind of falls apart for our marriage, a little bit disappointing. I think they're still going to add, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Who's that guy that's going to help them get that?
Yeah, the Mariners are in a really interesting spot because basically any player that becomes available, mid-season or right now, the Mariners can afford to go out and get him. It doesn't mean they're going to. It doesn't mean they like the player as much as maybe everybody else does. But if Jose Ramirez is out there, the Mariners can put together a better package than the Blue Jays. Doesn't mean they want to. I probably not. But so it's a really interesting spot. But who is the most valuable trade chip to add? It's probably Noelvi Marte. Is there a player who's going to be available that the Mariners would trade Marte for? Maybe Brian Reynolds, but probably not. So it's probably Marte. I really don't think they're going to trade Kirby. I think they like Kirby. They're not going to trade Julio. They might trade Kelnick, but I don't think they're going to give up on Kelnick quite that soon. So I think it's Noelvi. I think they really trust Harry Ford. They love the bat. The exit velo numbers are off the charts. His versatility, his athleticism. He's a 60 grade runner who's a catcher. I mean, he could play shortstop if you needed him to. I feel like Noelvi Marte is the biggest trade chip they have. We'll see if Hancock bounces back, Emerson Hancock, if he can stay healthy. He would be a nice trade chip as well. One guy who I know the front offices like a ton that maybe isn't getting a lot of hype in prospect circles, at least the top level of prospect circles. Adam Macko has a lot of admirers around the league, so I'd throw him out there as well. And, just because it's something we heard last year, and I'll throw a major leaguer out there because maybe the Mariners do have to trade from their major league roster, kind of like what Houston did last year. And ironically, it is a former Houston Astro. We've heard that there are several front offices who absolutely love Abraham Toro and want to get their hands on him. The Mariners got offers for Toro after they acquired him last year. The Mariners also really like Toro, obviously. So I would just throw him out there as kind of a major leaguer to watch. But I think at the end of the day, if you're looking for who's the best prospect they'll actually move for the right player, it's probably Noel V. Marte.
All right. Brett had to go record another podcast, so it's just the four of us now. We can talk crap about the Astros. Anyone got some funny?
Let's like that stopped me. No,
yeah,
I was going to say that.
Anyone
I
got
thought we were
some
doing
funny cheating memes?
Oh no, I was going to say like we were saying. I thought we were saying the best trade chip in the division, and I was going to go out on a limb and say Alex Bregman because after this year he starts making $30 million, and we know those poor Astros. Their pocketbooks are really their purse strings are really tight right now. You don't want to pay a guy any money unless it's
around your money.
Unless it's what's his face, like Justin Verlander. Names are hard, but only pay the old guys. Don't pay like the 30-year-olds.
No, 27-year-old star
Jason.
shortstops. Nah,
No thanks.
Frankie Montas, like we said, he's probably going to be gone by the end of this recording, maybe the end of the sentence.
Oh
who
no!
else?
Breaking news.
Oh boy. Frankie Montas to the Mariners. Let's go.
Noel V. Marte to the Oakland A's.
That's probably not going to happen considering what Colby and I have been told about how the A's feel about Mariners prospects or what they're asking for in division. It doesn't sound like something the Mariners are probably going to want to do. We'll just leave it at that. But if Montas is gone before the trade deadline, who else do you think some teams might give the A's a call on?
I think that Montas is assuredly gone, probably sooner rather than later, just because he does have an injury history. He doesn't throw a lot of innings generally. Last year was the most that he's ever thrown. So you'll want to trade him before he breaks down and he has no trade value. So look for that one soon. Sean Murphy is another big one. As I said before, Shea Langoliers is now probably the heir apparent. They just reset the catcher clock. If you look at it as a catcher clock and not a position,
didn't he just come up? Didn't Murphy just come up like last year or 2 years ago?
A couple years ago. So he's got 4 years of control, including this one. So, so you just reset it and go with the next wave of A's guys, and there you go. You got a bigger window by getting Shea Langoliers, and you get more prospects by trading Sean Murphy. Yay. Ramon Laureano is an interesting one. The Trade Values website says that he's like the second most valuable trade prospect that the A's had, and that's like with Olsen and Chapman and Bassett and the guys that they've already traded. He was just below Murphy. That was it. Mostly because of years of control. I don't know how much they factored the PED suspension into that, but hey, that's going to be the question mark is how does he play? How does he look? If he's still looking like Ramon Laureano, then he's got value. He's got a decent amount of value. Mm-hmm. He's probably on the trade block. And then the other guy, Brent was talking a lot about needing a reliever. They just have one, and it's Lou Trevino. He's a player. He's good. He's got experience. So maybe they can get, something for Lou Trevino. Is he going to be a closer type guy? No. He's a closer for the A's, but it's lack of options more than like undeniable talent. So he'd be like a seventh inning guy probably for a team. But, that holds value to teams like the Mariners. Could probably, you guys are really good, but you guys can depth. He's a depth guy.
They just lost Casey Sadler for the year. The Ken Giles is not going to be able to start the year healthy. So Trevino. Colby actually mentioned Trevino on our last episode of Locked On Mariners. So yeah,
there you go. So Trevino for Noel V. Marte, done deal, and I love it. Actually, no, I really like Noel V. Marte a lot. So
Billy Hamilton. We'll give you Steven Souza Jr. for Lou Trevino.
Can we get Steven Souza Jr. on every single major league team by the end of his career? I think we can do it. He's going to need to be traded a few more times, but I think he's got what it takes.
Bryce,
I love it. Yeah, so that's the good times.
So what about you guys down in Texas? Do you think they're going to add no matter what happens this season or what have you? And if they are going to sell a little bit, who do you think some teams might call on?
Well, the thing is, they're in kind of a weird place because they're not quite good enough to add, but they're not quite bad enough to sell. It's like right in that middle zone. The last couple of years, the Rangers have done, and while they've been absolute trash, the one thing they've done is been able to add a kind of bottom-ish tier pitching starting pitchers and kind of revitalize their careers. Guys that were washed up, they saw one little thing like, okay, we can tweak that one thing and they'll be great. They've done that 3 times now. They've made all of them all-stars. They did it with Lance Lynn. They did it with Mike Minor. They did it with who am I forgetting? Oh my God, I swear names. They just traded.
He was really good against the A's.
Not Mike Fultonevich. Good God.
Kyle Gibson.
Kyle Gibson. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it was a deserving all-star this year and kind of fell off in Philly. But they didn't really do that this year, unless they did with Martin Perez, which I've watched a lot of Martin Perez over the years. I don't know if that's the case. I think he's more of an innings eater. So there's not a whole lot to trade away in terms of veteran guys. I mean, if Cole Calhoun does like amazing, they still got another year on his option.
He will against the Mariners.
He probably will.
Old Ginger Popeye, he loves to body the Mariners on a frequent basis. So
they've also got Brad Miller, who's going to be platooning in left field, which is kind of a weird thing. If Andy Ibanez absolutely pops off, then that's a thought that he's got multiple years of control. I didn't think he'd ever be a major league starter. I watched him a whole lot in Double-A, and he was pleasantly surprising last year. And his defense, he spent a lot of time with Adrian Beltre this spring, and his defense looks like actually like good at third base, which is not something I ever thought I'd be saying. But in terms of the farm system, they also have a lot of top guys that it doesn't make sense to trade. Like they're not trading Jack Leiter for pretty much anything in the world. They're probably not trading Josh Young now because he's out for the whole year, and this would be just a dumb time to sell on him. Same with Owen White. Those are and Cole Winn. Like those are kind of their top 3 guys. Where you start to look at maybe trading guys is maybe you think about Ezekiel Duran. I don't think they want to. I think they really like him and Josh Smith, but Justin Foscue, who is a second base prospect, first round pick in I believe 2020. Who just randomly found a whole bunch of power, was pretty much just a hit for average kind of guy, really good plate approach. Started swinging and missing a whole lot more, but also hitting a crap ton more bombs than anybody thought possible. He's pretty much just a second base and more likely a left field guy eventually. And so I think he might be the top guy in their system that they move if they do decide to go and get somebody at the deadline, which I don't think they're going to make some big move at the deadline. It kind of depends if they're, they start off hot. I wouldn't be surprised if they made a move for a starting pitcher, but there's a lot of guys that they want to figure out in the rotation this year. It does look kind of poor, but they're trying to figure out which of these guys can be a middle of the rotation or just some part of the rotation starter. And this is the year to do it. You're not a whole lot of pressure to contend. But basically, starting next year, that clock is on because you spend that kind of money on those guys. They only have so many great years left in them, and so you got to start winning while they're good and while their contract is an asset as opposed to an albatross.
All right, the Angels. Boy, what a mess. I mean,
Shohei Ohtani is their top.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Trout. Yeah, no, they're actually in a pretty decent position if things fall off the rails again to sell some guys, Syndergaard's on a 1-year deal, so that's probably an attractive piece if he's healthy, if he's pitching fairly well. Obviously has some money there though involved, so that's going to create some problems there. They got the guys that they added to the bullpen like Loop, like Tepera. Those guys could have some value. David Fletcher maybe. Hopefully finally goes, please. He's just an absolute annoyance.
The Mariners handle Ohtani really well, by the way. But David
Justice Sheffield in particular handles.
Yeah,
I believe Justice Sheffield has Shohei Ohtani 0 for 10 against him in his career with
6 strikeouts and 1 walk.
Yeah.
Him and Taylor Hearn.
Taylor Hearn anybody else in his career?
No, just Ohtani.
That's wild. He has like 100 innings and it's just only gets just Ohtani.
He's the Ohtani killer. He's the Ohtani killer, man. Yeah, so I mean, and then if the Angels are actually by some miracle in a position to compete, at the midseason point, they're probably going to have to trade someone like Jared Walsh or Brandon Marsh or Joe Adell to get what they need, and that's, I mean, if any of those guys are popping off to the point where they're gaining interest to the point where they can actually get something useful for them, I mean, that's going to hurt their major league club as well. So they're in a really difficult spot here, and I love it.
They could trade Justin Upton. Oh, wait.
Okay, real quick. I want to know what the hell, why. Okay, here's the Angels. The Angels are wild. They're going to eat this contract, this $28 million contract, but they waited until the end of spring training when they need guys like Adele and Marsh to actually come up and perform well and be ready to go. But they gave this other guy who they're paying $28 million to go away at bats that could have been used for those guys. I'm very confused as to why they waited. I if you're going to cut them, but do it earlier and try.
They must have been looking
get some
for
guys some
trades.
at bats.
They must have been looking for trades, but the fact that you couldn't find anybody, even if you eat a decent chunk of the money,
$27 million.
It's better than eating all of it and getting nothing. I mean, good Lord, he wasn't that bad last year.
You're telling me the Rockies wouldn't have traded something for $1 million worth of Justin Upton?
Marquez.
3 top prospects for it and agreed to pay that salary and send money because the Rockies
and
make
also
no
another
sense
$12
right
million.
now.
Man,
We'll also give you
we've
Chris
been-
Bryant, but we'll pay his whole salary.
Man, we've been having so much fun dragging all these AL West teams that we started going into the NL West. Anyone
They're
have
all
any
catching
thoughts on the
strays.
Diamondbacks or the Padres?
Oh man, what a joke of a franchise that is. Thanks, Dave Stewart. A's legend.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for tuning in to our AL West roundtable here on Locked On MLB. For Brett Chansey, Jason Burke, Bryce Patrick, and Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's DaneGnzlz. You can follow Brett at H-Town Wheelhouse. You can follow Jason at By Jason B. You can follow Bryce at Bryce Patrick and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can find Locked On Astros, Locked On Rangers, Locked On Mariners, and the Locked On A's podcast on YouTube and on all podcast platforms. And no matter where you're listening, thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Be sure to check back here for more Locked On MLB, where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the Major League's present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like this one. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day. Go M's. Go baseball. Peace.
And A's. Go A's as well.